Hello YouTube, Anne at Bella here, and today I'm finally getting around to do my review of A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. This is the last book in the series, book 13. There are 13 books in total. It's called The End. And there it is for you. I do actually own the first book and the second book, but I couldn't find it. I think I've put them up in the attic. So here are all the covers. There are 13 books in total in this series. The series is called A Series of Unfortunate Events. The first book is called The Bad Beginning. The second book is The Reptile Room. The third book is The Wise Widow. Fourth is The Miserable Mill. The fifth is The Austere Academy. The sixth is The Strange Elevation. Can't read it, sorry. The Vile Village is the next book. The Hasty Hospital. The Carnivorous Carnival, The Slippery Slope, The Grim Grotto, The Penultimate Peril, and The End. They're all based around the three children, which are Violet, Sunny, and Klaus Baudelaire's. They are three orphans because in the beginning of the book they are on a beach and they get informed that their parents have died mysteriously in a fire. And they get taken by this banker to a series of guardians, and the first guardian is Count Olaf. But Olaf wants to, sorry for all the spoilers, wants the Baudelaire fortune, so he decides that he's going to marry Violet. Each one of the three siblings has got like a gift. Violet is very good at inventing. Sunny starts off, she's a baby, she bites things very well and has got a strong grip, but by the end of the series she's also got an interest in cooking. Klaus, he's got a photographic memory, he likes reading books and he can remember anything that he reads. They are an interesting, macabre books. They do a lot of definitions for new words and things like that. They have pictures in them as well, and they do have recurring characters. For the first 6 books, it's basically the children get taken to a series of carers who, by some strange coincidence, seem to know each other but deny it. And they're being chased by Count Olaf from the first book. And their mysterious guardians have mishaps that leads to their death. After sort of this book here, the story kind of changes, and it's more sort of the children are after Count Olaf for the bad things that they perceive that he has done. They find the words VFD, which stand for the Volunteer Fire Department, all the way through, and mysterious eyes, and Count Olaf has an eye tattoo on his ankle. Because the children are sort of 13 and under, by the end of the book they're sort of about the two older ones are sort of 14, 15. Sunny is only sort of coming up to about 3 at the end of the series. It's a strange series because you feel there is definitely more going on, and had the children got adult eyes, they would have been able to unpick it all. Count Olaf, the Volunteer Fire Department seems to be split between villains and volunteers, though I don't think originally it was. I think everybody was originally on the same page, so what happened between all these adults is unknown. Like in the Reptile Room, they go and stay with Uncle Monty, who ends up dying, but he seems to know their parents. All of these people that they go and stay with seem to know their parents. Like the weird, the Wise Widow, she knew their parents, and she had a photographic album which featured her doing like all these daring deeds, but by the end of it she's like a nervous wreck, so something is clearly out to get her. Eyes are a common motif all the way through. An amber spyglass is also the way through, and a magnifying glass is presumed to be the thing that killed the parents in the fire, and it's never stated whether it was Count Olaf or whether it wasn't. As the plot progresses, things become slightly less black and white. Like Kit Snicket, she is the sister of Lemony Snicket, but apparently she had a relationship with Count Olaf, major spoiler warning, but it didn't work out. But so she ends up marrying somebody else who's a volunteer. That's like one of the good guys. And her husband ends up dying, but she ends up pregnant. And in the end, it's Count Olaf, of all people, who help her out. So there are some strange things that the children themselves sort of have to navigate, but never get told. And some of the adults are very tight-lipped. They don't want the information to get out because it'll either make them look bad or it'll make them look kind in Count Olaf's case. So it's very, very interesting story. The writing is exquisite. Some of the last things that Count Olaf says is like, it's almost as if he's trying to explain why he's been the way he has. And it's man hands misery onto man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself, which is an interesting, that's kind of like summing him up. But weirdly enough, Kit says the night has 1,000 eyes, and then Count Olaf finishes it for her. The day but one, yet the light of the bright world dies with the dying sun. The mind has 1,000 eyes, and the heart but one, yet the light of the whole life dies when love is done. And it's interesting because Count Olaf says to Kit just before he dies, because he dies first, Kit's going into labour and they've been poisoned, and it's a whole hoodly-ha. Sorry for the spoilers for the end, but that's life. And he says, he says to her, "You're not the only one who remembers the words of our associates." So clearly at one point, all of these people that the Baudelaire orphans are visiting clearly had a very close bond. They knew each other very well. So there is something, but you can't put your finger on it. It's like everybody who takes in the Baudelaires know that they're going to be bringing death almost to their door, but they still do it anyway. So clearly the Baudelaire's parents were highly thought of and well respected among the group. The fact that Olaf was the first one to put his hand up and say, "Yeah, I'll do it," when he says, like, "Don't have any kids yourself." So clearly either all these people are heavily in their parents' debt, or they respected them, or they're just sort of like, this is the way it's turned out. It is interesting that Kit has a baby called Beatrice, and the Baudelaire orphans end up becoming her parent. Whether it is the Beatrice at the front of the book, because all the books are written by Lemony Snicket, who becomes basically he's the narrator, but he's also like this side character, because he says, the information I've got isn't very clear. And it says, "For Beatrice, I cherish you perish, the world's been nightmarish." So it's almost as if Beatrice got all the information from Violet, Sunny and Klaus, her adoptive parents, and she's relying on their descriptions of the events, which is why we don't know everything, because Violet, Sunny and Klaus ended up not knowing everything because the adults around them didn't tell them, or were protecting them, or died before they could get all of the information. Here we go. This is a better. So there's the bad beginning, the reptile room, the wide window, the wise widow, hey, the miserable male, the austere academy, the State elevator, the vile village, the hostile hospital, the carnivorous carnival, the slippery slope, the grim grotto, the penultimate peril. So there are some really, really, really good use of words, really good vocabulary. It's mystery, it's sad. I like the fact at the end he says that everybody who is born starts their own series of unfortunate events, which is kind of sad. There is this morbid depression in the books, I will say that. They aren't sunny and they aren't rosy, and it's not going to all turn out good in the end, but everybody seems to get on and do their best. Now, there is, and he does define the more complex words, which is great for children. But I'd sort of give it to 9+, because it is strange, and there's almost like this adult undertone that is touched on but never quite deepened. But because our narrators are 3 children, they don't narrate, but you clearly have got the story from them, maybe have got the story from Beatrice, who Lemony Snicket is writing up the information, because even he says I've not got all the facts, I don't know what happened, I'm relying on other people's testimony. So he's clearly relying on Beatrice, whether that Beatrice is Beatrice, because Beatrice is actually named after the Baudelaire's mother. I hope you've enjoyed this review. I'm sorry if it's been kind of on the one side spoilerific, on the one side lack of information-y. I haven't read all of the books. I've only read 1, 2, 3 and the last one, because it does, on the negative side, it is very formulaic and it isn't as detailed as we would like. So you sort of get interesting character development, but then it doesn't go anywhere, and then it kind of changes, and then it does something else, so you don't get the depth. The only 3 characters that you feel that you know are Violet, Sunny and Klaus. Count Olaf, you feel by the end you know him very well. Kit Snicket is somewhat of a mystery, but you do feel a connection to her. But even with Count Olaf, even though he's been in 13 books, by the end of it, you still don't know all of his story. You don't know what's crackled off before the fire. It's like as soon as the fire killed the parents, all of what happened before has sort of gone up in ash, and we are in this complete madness of people that are either damaged or neurotic or just plain adults, which is very interesting, and I think it says a lot about adults, that adults aren't perfect, that they do have issues and their own things. I mean, like the poor in the movie that they did of it, they did do a movie. It was basically The Bad Beginning, The Reptile Room and The Wide Window. And how they did it was they started off at Count Olaf's, but then the bankers recognised that Olaf was basically bad. So they went to the Reptile Room, then Olaf came and he got rid of Uncle Monty, and then he came and he got rid of their auntie there, and they ended up doing the end of A Bad Beginning at the end of the 3rd book, which was really quite a clever idea to have all 3 together. I was kind of hoping that they'd continue and like sort of do all 3, but by that, they're the only sort of 3 that you could do it, because after that the sets would be bigger and slightly different, and you're not quite sure what the time period is either. It's sort of is it Victorian or is it Edwardian? You're not quite sure. They clearly have got some technology, but they haven't got colour televisions, so you're sort of like, where are we? It's got that macabre, Penny Dreadful feel to it, that is slightly Victorian, and it is grisly, but it's sort of grisly on the side. It's like grisly without all the details. It says they died in a fire, but you don't get any description of that. I find it interesting that it starts with 3 orphans on a beach and it ends with 3 orphans on a beach. I think the series is great, but I think that they are clearly children's books. They are formulaic. They do have some really taxing vocabulary in them, which I think is great. But he does sort of define it. They do find a book that's written by their parents, but it's mostly about horseradish. But that never gets explored, and you never sort of find out what that is. So there are mysteries within mysteries within mysteries, and there's a lot of unknown. And it's really bizarre. Our families have always been close, Kit said, even if we had to stay apart from one another. Now finally we're all together as if we are one family. So clearly the bonds between the characters are incredibly strong. It's just that the children don't know why, which is really sad, because clearly even between the villains and the volunteers there is something more. They're all living for something more, but you're not quite sure with the adults. With the children, we understand that they want to find a family and settle down, but by sort of like the 5th book in, you know that's not going to happen. it's just not on the cards for them. It's a rather strange series because it sort of takes place in 3 years. I've enjoyed reading the series. It's been great, though I've not read them all because they got formulaic and I just wanted to read the end and skip a bit. That's the telephone. I've got to go. I hope you've enjoyed this review of them. Bye.